Botani Mawedu, and welcome to the Sheds. We are back again, shedding the lights on everything that matters.
Is there a possibility to see, as you're unveiling those names, to see your former presidents such as Jacob Zuma emerging in the act?
Me, I believe in leaders who emerge out of struggle. I don't believe in people who are made by the media.
The ANC is still trying to grapple with power. It is still trying, to cling on to power. And most probably that's why we're also even finding it very difficult for not just only the ANC, but also other political parties coming into the fore when it came to the review of the electoral bill.
We are talking about an 80.9 billion budget of the city of Johannesburg. Basically, to run the city, there's about 80 billion, 900 million that is involved. Somebody will ask, what does it mean to preside over a budget this big?
I haven't had time to sit back and say, hey man, well done. My focus really has been in ensuring that we are moving forward, we are sustaining. So maybe in December, sitting down with a glass of whiskey, I can say no. At least, I
want to ask this, Doctor, because I think currently, as you've seen in our country, especially in the space of social media, you see people coming out having a meltdown of mental illness. Do you think people, because they don't know how to deal with, some they just cause outbursts in those spaces. Do you think maybe the problem is that we're not having much discussion about it, that people, they don't know where to go when they start to experience?
The most important thing is that the people, they need to vote in line with the kind of future they want to live in. They can't be voting because of the past or not wanting to participate in voting at all. So what we're saying is the ATM, critically, we need to invest in the future. And the future lies in educating our young people.
From the look of things and the researches that has been done, it looks like we won't get an outright majority.
The thing was always there, the phrase was there, but we needed to take it, clothe it, because I viewed it as civic activism with bare bones that needed meat.
Actually, the breaking point was seeing the people that I looked up to, Baba, subjected into such things, and they had to succumb to it.
Amazamazamas is the what meek, or I don't want to say meek. I wonder about who are hard workers.
South Africa today spends 143 million rand every day paying these so-called independent power producers of renewable energy who deliver zero, because 100% of their power is redundant, meaning it is not usable in the grid.
I've got 3 clean audits. I've finalized more than 60,000 complaints and issued 412 reports. And by last year, it was only 14 or 17 which were set aside. It's not even a percentage.
I think 30 years or so now down the line, the time to review the Constitution has come.
Botani, and welcome to the Sheds. Once again, we are shedding light. He has been the member of the ANC for more than 40 years, fired for gross misconduct, or you could say bringing the party into disrepute. He has found his own and he is the president of it. Today we are shedding light on Mpangazitha Niehaus. Welcome to the Sheds.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Welcome. Comrade Carl.
This is Mpangazitha,
yes,
and I want to start there. Why is he called Mpangazitha? Where do you come with Mpangazitha? Where do you get Mpangazitha?
The name Mpangazitha was given to me by the late King Zwelithini.
Wow, okay.
Oh, okay.
And
interesting.
It was, there's different translations and interpretations. The one simply means planner.
Yes.
But I know the one that King Zwelithini meant was the stronger worded one, and that is he who eats his enemies alive.
Wow. Which is a proper clan name. That is actually a Zulu clan name.
Exactly.
Mpangazitha. Not that you are a descendant of the Mpangazitha clan.
No, I'm not. But King Zwelithini said that I am an honorary Zulu.
Wow.
So I consider it to be really a big, big honor.
It carries high stature. So you've been given an honor, so like honorary doctorate. So this one is honoraris or honorary Zulu.
Honorary Zulu.
Okay,
that's a nice one.
Because Carl was fired, and I want us to start there, because if we start when you joined the ANC, your imprisonment and all
We'll
these
be here
things,
until tomorrow.
We'll be here until tomorrow. Let's start at the end so that we can reach where you are. When you were fired by the ANC for gross misconduct, for bringing the party into disrepute, what exactly did you do?
Well, you see, I think the problem is if we don't start at the beginning, we don't understand the end.
Okay.
Because the reason why I joined the African National Congress, which was because I truly wanted to see full liberation in South Africa. Not just liberation from racism, but also full economic liberation. And I truly believed in what the then president of the ANC, Comrade O.R. Tambo, said, that economic liberation and liberation from racism goes hand in hand.
Okay.
So why am I saying this? Because this is also the reason why I was fired by the ANC. Because the African National Congress diverted from those original liberation ideals. And it became an organization that was no longer concerned about the economic liberation of the majority of black and African people. In fact, it became a comprador capitalist organization, serving the interests of white monopoly capitalism and of imperialism. And when I criticize that, when I criticize the way in which the ANC has betrayed those original liberation ideals, when I criticize the way in which the ANC is abusing state institutions, including our legal system, they said these criticisms that I brought the ANC into disrepute. Now that is, to use the good old English expression, poppycock.
Yeah. So just
what happened actually
I just want to come in
is
there.
that the ANC brought itself into disrepute. It wasn't me leaving the ANC. It was the ANC leaving me from where I've always been and always followed those pursuits for full liberation.
Mr. Carl, some will have argue and say, but you're probably saying this because you were kicked out of the ANC, you were out in the cold, and that you sound like a bitter ex. And they'll probably argue and say, what you are saying is that there should be a division between party and the state. Hence that argument to say, you can't say that what judiciary has been captured. It's an independent institution. What would be your reaction to that?
Let me start with this issue of capturing the judiciary. The ANC had captured the judiciary. Cyril Ramaphosa and his acolytes had been using the Commission of Inquiry into state capture as an instrument of attack against those that he considered to be his opponents within the African National Congress. They have captured the judiciary. If you see what is happening today with Ramaphosa's Pala Pala Farmgate scandal, the matter is simply not being pursued in the way it should be. The National Prosecuting Authority are investigating and investigating, but I guarantee you they will never come to a conclusion. They will never end up with bringing a charge against Cyril Ramaphosa. Look what happened with the public protector. When Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane asked those seminal 32 questions of Ramaphosa within a day, she was suspended from her job, and then that whole farcical impeachment process unfolded, which led to her being impeached in the most cynical and vindictive way you can imagine, a mere 14 days before her 7-year term expired. And we all know that the current public protector isn't the public protector of South Africa. She's the public protector of Cyril Ramaphosa.
Even though Parliament is the one that recommended her and she went through the process?
The ANC has once again abused its majority and managed to co-opt a few sellouts from other political parties. You know what happened in Parliament. You know the way in which Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane was removed. You also know that the report that this public protector, which is actually the protector of the president, brought out on Pala Pala is a scandalous report. It has absolutely no strong foundation in law. And when they now are trying to challenge this report, this public protector that had now been appointed by Ramaphosa and his acolytes says she's going to oppose that challenge that is coming out. So what we see here is a hollowing out of state institutions, one after the other. As I said, the judiciary, the National Prosecuting Authority. We can see what happens with our state-owned enterprises. We can go on and on. And most recently, we also saw what happened to the South African Reserve Bank and the scandalous way in which it tried to justify the Pala Pala Farmgate scandal, a so-called imperfect transaction. There's no such phrase, there's no such concept in law. There's nothing in terms of the Constitution and all the rules and regulations that regulate the South African Reserve Bank that justifies that report. And SARS is the same nonsense. SARS has to acknowledge that Ramaphosa never paid tax on all the money that is now revealed that had been at Pala Pala Farm, but at the same time they come with a nonsensical conclusion after they had to acknowledge that no tax was paid. Then they come with a nonsensical conclusion that he had done nothing wrong. And just recently, when we saw those two accused who had apparently stolen the money from the couches and from the sofas of Ramaphosa at Pala Pala, appearing at the Bella Bella Magistrates Court, it was clear that Ramaphosa had lied through his teeth about the amount of money that actually came there on the farm, because they are now being charged for an amount of money much bigger than the money that Ramaphosa is making.
Let's hold it right there. I see you've come out guns blazing. Yes, Mpangazitha, you accused the ANC, you accused the judiciary, the current president, the ANC, the public protector. You went as far as saying the ANC is involved in the abuse of state resources and power. I'm asking, sitting here, why would a liberation movement be involved in such things? Shouldn't it be in its best interest to ensure the country moves in the right direction? What are the examples of abuse of power?
You're absolutely right. That is what the ANC should have done. And that is what the ANC was formed for in 1912. And when I joined the ANC in 1979, the ANC was still, to some extent, I won't say fully, on the right course, because I believe that infiltration in the African National Congress started already in exile. And there was a long-term plan by white monopoly capitalism and by imperialism to infiltrate the ANC, to make sure that eventually the ANC will sell out these liberation ideals. You will remember in the mid-1980s, the ANC met with some of the big captains of industry in South Africa. Gavin Reddy of Anglo-American, Anglo-Val, all of those big monopoly companies. And if you listen to an interview by Ronnie Kashrils, he says he was surprised how quickly the ANC delegation was prepared to settle with those captains of industry that there will not be fundamental economic transformation in South Africa, and that their interests will be protected. So what I'm saying to you is there was already a thread that ran through exile up to the negotiations and after the negotiations of the ANC increasing, selling out its original full liberation ideals. And that happened especially during the negotiations. Because during the negotiations, some very serious compromises were made. Remember the sunset clauses. Remember the decision to have Section 25 of the Constitution that now institutionalized property rights. How on earth do you institutionalize property rights of land that had been stolen? It is like you stealing my car. I find out that you've stolen my car. I come to your house, I say, I want my car back. And you say to me, yes, I'll give you my car back, your car back, if you pay me. And I take my wallet out and I pay you. It's ridiculous. It's nonsense. But yet the ANC agreed to those arrangements during the negotiating process. So fundamental, and I would now say with the wisdom of hindsight, looking back after 30 years, of the consequences of those compromises made in the Constitution, fundamental and fatal compromises had been made that brought us to this point where our country is on the verge of collapsing, where neoliberal economic policies have now become the order of the day. And let me come back to this issue of why does the ANC behave like this? Because the leadership of the African National Congress sold out their commitment to liberation literally for a pot of lentil soup. They sold out their commitment to full economic liberation for shares, for money, for houses, for bribes. You can continue to count it. And they have now become a corrupt, mafia-like enterprise.
But Mr. Carl, some will say it would be easy for you
They
now
are
that
mafia-like
some will say it's easy for you because you are sitting here, but you were there, and during your time you're within the ANC, within the highest decision-making structures.
The upper echelon.
You had an opportunity to influence change. Why didn't you do that? And obviously with other people that left the ANC. You say it's easy for you to sit
I'm sitting here talking about how I was expelled from the ANC. And by the way, my expulsion was a total kangaroo court. It was a farce. While that disciplinary hearing was going on, and it was happening virtually, the chair of the disciplinary hearing, Ralph Nkajima, was talking to the prosecutor, and they thought they were offline. So they thought myself and Comrade Matthews Poza, who was my legal representative, couldn't hear them. And they were saying to each other, we must move fast, because remember, the president wanting to be expelled from the ANC before the 55th National Conference. So they made up their minds. I was being subjected to a kangaroo court.
So you're a big
now let's
threat.
return to your question. Yes, I've been part of the ANC for 43 years. But you can go and check my record. I stood up against many of these sell-out positions that had been taken over the decades. I was opposed, but I was a very junior member of the ANC's negotiating team for the negotiations at CODESA. I was opposed to the adoption of property rights in terms of Section 25 in the Constitution. I was opposed to the sunset clauses, which was originated by Thabo Mbeki and then pushed through by Joe Slovo. All of this nicely packaged by Cyril Ramaphosa. And during the years, I've been opposed to many decisions that were taken in the ANC. But I believed, because I joined the ANC so many years ago, because I'm not the kind of person that acts in a disloyal fashion, I said, let me work within the ANC. I tried to believe
disciplined
that
cadre.
What I now see as a farcical notion that you can bring change within the ANC. In 2012, at the Mangaung Conference, the 53rd National Conference of the ANC, I was deeply, fundamentally opposed to the election of Cyril Ramaphosa as the Deputy President of South Africa. The other day I was talking to President Zuma at Nkandla, and he was recalling how I walked onto the stage just before he made his closing speech after the new national executive had been announced and Cyril Ramaphosa was also announced as the Deputy President. And he was telling the people around the table, Comrade Carl walked onto the stage and he slams his fist on my table and he says to me, Nkamalala, what you've done today by getting Cyril Ramaphosa back into politics and as the Deputy President of your government, you will regret for the rest of your life. And I told him, I said, President Zuma, I'm not waiting for your concluding speech here. I'm leaving.
You told him,
And I walked out. I left. So I made it clear because, in the early 1990s, when Ramaphosa was parachuted into the position of Secretary General, with the help of Clive Mennell, Irene Mennell, and the Oppenheimers, who convinced President Mandela that Ramaphosa would be a good idea to have as the Secretary General. Because remember, he was the Secretary General of the Sweetheart Union, the National Union of Mine Workers, which they created in order to try and manage the radicalism of mine workers in South Africa. The first office that the NUM had was at Anglo-American, paid for by Harry Oppenheimer. You can't get more sweetheart than that. So I worked with Cyril Ramaphosa. I saw the kind of person he is. I saw that he's only driven by money.
Do you
I
still
his
talk to
ego.
him?
And I had no time for him. He had no understanding of the African National Congress because he was parachuted in. He had no history. He shouldn't have been there. He was there because the white monopoly, big capitalists wanted him there.
Mr. Karl, fast forward, you got kicked out of ANC. You formed your own political party, ARETA. Why ARETA?
African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance. Because I'm committed to the same radical economic transformation ideals that I joined the ANC for. And I'm not someone who believes you create a party and you give it a name or an acronym and no one can figure out what the party stands for. You have to be clear what you are there for.
And your objectives,
Therefore,
yes.
ARETA is absolutely clear for radical economic transformation. And ARETA is an ideologically driven party. We're not there for all these celebrities. We're not there to come and talk generalities. We talk through economic policy transformation. We believe that a political party that's worth its salt must be based on a strong ideology. And the politics of that ideology must cascade through all the actions of that party. That's why we have a 10-point plan to save South Africa, which is the 10 major points which should inform any radical economic transformation program to change South Africa.
Okay, we'll get to those, but I just want to find out, forming a political party is a big deal.
Yeah.
It requires resources, it requires money. You need to crisscross the length and breadth of the country and look into the issues that you're talking about. How did you get to form ARETA? What resources and where did they come from? One would say you would have used the money of your own party to form ARETA.
Look, ARETA is formed on the basis of the contribution of its members. We started off by being a non-profit organization. And then we made sure that we built a base of membership. And the members told us, we want you to be a political party. And we said we are not going to depend on big funders. I do not want to be in the pockets of any of the big companies in South Africa.
So you're not funded?
I'm not funded by those companies.
Only
You can
through your
come
members.
to my bank account, the bank account of ARETA. We are not being funded by big companies.
Okay.
We are being funded through crowdfunding by the rank and file membership of ARETA.
Cool.
And we have believed throughout that we need to make every cent stretch as
perfect.
far as possible.
Perfect.
So the way in which we work is that we work smart. We have small meetings in communities. We address community issues. We do not have big, large, huge rallies that cost a lot of money, but we do reach a lot of people. You know, people are surprised when I tell them that since we had been formed on the 23rd of February, ARETA now can count as its membership 320,000 members.
Oh, okay.
I'm proud of that.
Is that across
because
South Africa?
this is an organic growth
Is that across South Africa?
right across South Africa.
Okay. How is ARETA preparing for elections? We're just pressed for time. Because I don't want you to leave without telling people whether or not ARETA is an alternative. I believe its president, Mpangazitha. So how is it preparing for elections? And what is it offering the electorate? Why should people vote for ARETA for you to be the president of this country?
I started by explaining to you just now that we work with small community groups throughout the country. And those small community groups, we go and find out what are the problems, the challenges that those communities are faced with. And then when it is possible for us, we address those problems. On the East Rand, we had a situation where in Polo Park, 3 houses had burned down because of this load shedding. You know, it's load shedding, then there's a surge of electricity, appliances are left on, the houses burned down. We said, look, we've got a little bit of resources and we've got some people with the skills to do so. We built for those families, those 3 families, new houses. We went out and we collected amongst the community the resources to give to the kids their new school uniforms and make sure that until the families were settled, that there was the necessary food and the necessary kitchen appliances and everything bought for the house. So those are the kind of practical things we do. But beyond that, for me, the most important thing is political education. So in those small meetings that I've referred to, we consistently go back to what the 10 points of Areta is.
Name those quickly.
It is the return of the land to the people, expropriation of land without compensation.
2.
South African Reserve Bank must be nationalized.
3.
All the state-owned enterprises must be back in state and national ownership, and those that have been privatized must return back to national ownership. We need to have a proper healthcare, national healthcare plan. We need to have a pharmaceutical state-owned company. We need to have a state-owned bank. We need to have a national call-up for young people. Everyone at 18 should be called up for 1 year of national call-up. Training to get vocational training and become part of civil construction and the rebuilding of the country, and also giving the opportunity to young people to again start learning how to work, to develop the right skills, but also the right attitude. We need to address the issue of crime. Crime in South Africa is out of control, and under that issue of crime, we need to address the issue of gender-based violence. We must make sure that the issue of undocumented illegal foreigners is addressed, and all undocumented illegal foreigners should be apprehended, and in fact, they should be deported to their countries of origin.
Cool.
And then I want to emphasize strong sentences for the very serious crimes that we see in South Africa. In South Africa, we've got the highest murder rate in the world, the highest rape rate in the world. All of these issues must be addressed, and we want to give a referendum to the population of South Africa to decide on whether the death penalty should not be brought back. And then finally, we say we need to work closer with our BRICS partners to bring cheaper resources, amongst those resources, fuel into South Africa, to bring the general cost of living down. And of course, we must work for free, equal quality education for all South African children at all different education levels.
We have 1 minute left. Do you have any question?
I think one question, the parting question is that, how well do you think your party will do next year? And should you make numbers and find probably a seat in parliament, are you willing to go in coalition, and which party are you going to coalition with?
I think the party will do well, young as it is. We have managed to capture the imagination of many South Africans because we are ideologically sound. But a very, very critical part of what we must do is to form an alliance with all other progressive political parties in this country.
Which are those?
African Transformation Movement, also the Pan-Africanist Congress, the United Democratic Movement, also the Economic Freedom Fighters, and any other parties that can associate themselves with these radical economic transformation ideals that I've spelled out. We can get a platform, a minimum platform of implementation and action amongst all these parties. The other day I was in a meeting with the leaders of these parties because we're talking. And I said, please tell me, do any of you disagree with expropriation of land without compensation? No.
No.
We all agree. Do you all agree that the Reserve Bank must be nationalized? Yes. Must we institute a state bank? Must we bring government control back over the state-owned enterprises? Must we make sure that Eskom function properly and that we nationalize our coal resources? They all said yes. I said, so why are we all here as separate political parties?
Perfect.
Let us all unite. Let us come together under one emblem, one organizational logo for the election so that we give a clear alternative for the voter so that we can truly challenge this rogue ANC government. Because if we unite, we will be able. Because the voters are sick and tired of the ANC. They want to get rid of the ANC. It's for us to make it possible for those voters to vote for an alternative that will get rid of the ANC.
Cool. One last question, yes or no? Are you angry at the ANC for expelling you?
No.
Yes or no? Do you hate Cyril Ramaphosa?
I don't hate Cyril Ramaphosa, but I hate what he does.
Thank you very much. That was Carl Niehaus, the president of Areta, who's calling for cooperation amongst all progressive forces. Do you believe him? Do you think that is the right approach? You will decide. That was another episode of The Sheds. Continue watching. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our podcast, The Sheds Podcast. Bye-bye.